Oh, remembering. Number 8. No, remembering. Number 9. Chapter 9. The past made real. From the beginning, Jerry had felt like a foreigner. Not much in this world made sense. She knew that her parents were concerned. She spent too much time alone. She avoided people. Hard to make friends anyway. She wouldn't go to church either. She told her parents that she could not believe in a God their minister described. A benevolent being would not judge and punish. When she was about 5 years old, she had shared some of her ideas with them and the colors around everything. Friends that no one else could see, music that filled the air. They had been shocked and told her to never speak of such things. And so she had held all that which was so real and valuable to her inside. Why would anyone prefer this life of fear and blame to the one that was so real to her, one of joy and acceptance? In her world, differences were acknowledged and celebrated. No one would have hurt another. One's thoughts and emotions either added to or diminished every other being. Everyone was responsible for monitoring their mind and feelings to bring benefit. Encouragement lifted everyone. No, she would not accept life as crazy as the one she saw around her, where blame, divisiveness, and all forms of isms existed. If it meant being alone in this strange, hostile place, so be it. Although her school grades were excellent and college seemed to pose no problem at all, Jerry felt depressed sometimes. She sat on the grass of the university quad. Her fellow students moved around campus. Some were in groups, others alone. Couples held hands as they walked or chatted under trees and by their cars. Couples sharing and laughing, touched someplace deep inside. Today she felt empty. Would there ever be someone with whom she would feel safe? Would there be someone who didn't demand that she change, who could listen to her dreams and ideas without judgment or ridicule? If not, she would be alone, and the hope of partner would remain safely tucked away. No one would guess at the pain she sensed radiating from the campus. She felt it, had always felt it. It was a burden and a blessing. It kept her on guard, protective and yet separate, feeling like some alien made for a very lonely life. Jerry had avoided people for so long that she wondered if she would ever be able to make friends. Sometimes she missed that part of life, but another time she was glad she didn't have to worry about all the pitfalls. But today, for some reason she did not understand, a great sadness engulfed Jerry. She gathered her books and headed for the parking lot. A small group of young men were ahead, walking on the sidewalk toward her. They were laughing and jostling each other. She tucked her head down and quickened her pace. As she approached, they whistled and one voice called out to, "Nice tits." Perhaps encouraged by the raucous response from his buddies, another one called out, "Hey, sexy, want to come home with us?" She made her way around the group, feeling like her clothes were being pulled away, her body exposed. Jerry pulled herself so deep into her core that her heart and lungs constricted. These intense feelings were the burden of her sensitivity beyond hearing the words. As she rushed around them, she caught the jeering eyes of one young man. His eyes only confirmed her judgments. Fuming, Jerry flung her books into the back seat of her car. What a harsh world. She climbed behind the wheels and slammed the car door. She laid her head against the steering wheel and gripped it until her fingers turned white. I'll never, never, never be a part of this sick society, she spoke through clenched teeth. She was surprised at her rage and alarmed at the undercurrents of fear that she felt. Starting her car, Jerry drove quickly and soon pulled into the driveway of her home. She opened the car door, pushed up the seat to retrieve her books. A sense of invasion and derision stayed with her. The tall blonde was the leader. She could tell by the look in his eyes. His glance wasn't in any way innocent or playful. His menacing eyes stirred something inside her. Jerry wanted nothing to do with him. She turned and ran up the stairs to the front door. She stopped to check the mailbox on the porch before opening the door and going inside. Jerry hadn't noticed the small foreign car following her from school. His driver traveled at a safe distance behind. He parked and watched as she pulled into the driveway and opened the door. The tall blonde man smiled to himself as he made a note of her address and drove away. Jerry had no idea that eyes watched her. They watched her during the day, while she played with her dog, walked to the neighborhood store, lounged in the backyard, noted when no one else was home, and her late hours studying at the school library. He watched and he waited. The young man wondered at this obsession with this strange woman. He had been with others. He'd found great pleasure in the conquest and their subservience. He moved from one to another, taking pride in the trail of hurt and anguish he left behind. Life was a game of the powerful and the powerless. He was determined to be powerful and take all that he could. When the time was right, he would make his move and she too would be his. He smirked, excited at the thought. Weeks later, Jerry was studying late. The library was more crowded than usual. It must be the last minute cramming for midterms, she thought. She looked up at the clock. Only 15 minutes before the library closed at 10 p.m. There was one more book she wanted to check for information, and there was no time to read it here. I'll just find the book and check it out, Jerry reasoned. She rose and quickly moved to the book aisles. Scanning the top shelves for the title she wanted, Jerry missed the movement of someone behind her. Hi, gorgeous. Jerry whirled, narrowly missing his chest with her pen. She looked up into the eyes of the blonde man from the whistling incident weeks ago. Her jaw set, and she turned back to the shelves of books. Thought you might want someone to walk you to your car. It gets rather dark this time of night. His crooked smile had deceived many, but not Jerry. Her whole body sensed danger. Her eyes shot him her answer, and she turned to walk away. He put out his arm to stop her, but it was too late. He stood feeling angry and embarrassed as he watched her gather her books and leave the library. Her refusal was not what he expected, not what he would accept. Something deep within took over. He moved swiftly and quietly out the door. He knew her driving path. He knew the shortcut she always took through the small alley. Driven by some compulsive determination, he climbed into his small car and sped ahead with his blood pounding. This woman was his, and he would have her. As Jerry slowed her car to turn into the alley, the driver's door was yanked open, and a hand reached for the keys to her car. Later, looking back, she thought, I should have screamed, should have fought. What's wrong with me? But it all happened so quickly, so unexpectedly. Pulled from the car and held from behind, Jerry felt a dirty cloth forced into her mouth, and she was pushed to the ground. The rough gravel of the road tore at her skin, and her blouse ripped open. Jerry struggled against the strong hands that fondled her breast and forced her jeans down. The pain of the rape, the threat, the fear, and the shame pierced a curtain over a long ago memory. Her emotions rose and ripped open a chamber she had sealed off eons ago. Light exposed the picture, and pain echoed throughout her body. Faces flashing on the ceiling of her mind, and then the terror and cries stopped. She felt as silent and cold as an ice cave. Jerry went inside that cave, burying herself where no one could reach her. The young man had collapsed on her, entirely spent. He hurriedly raised his body, zipped his jeans, and buckled his belt. The woman had her face turned away, eyes closed. In the light of the moon, he could see the blood where her cheek had hit a rock. For a moment, he was confused, as if coming out of a bad dream, but he pushed that aside. "You tell anyone and I'll kill you," he snarled as he moved to his car, hidden in the alley. "She asked for it, the bitch. Just like all women, they have to be taught their place," he mumbled as he walked away. He turned the keys to his sports car and sped toward his home. In his cozy apartment, Rory had just finished reviewing some ideas he had to discuss with the board of trustees at the center. It was 10:25 p.m. Very little evening left. He got up from his desk, gathering the papers he would need for tomorrow's meeting. Suddenly, he felt like he had been kicked in the stomach. He doubled over and his vision blurred. Bile raised in his throat, and he swallowed hard. A moan came from a place beyond his physical body, and pictures came. Visions, dreams, he could not say. His head swirled, and the bile came again, and he reached to sit on his chair. A woman, some long ago time, just like before, but this time he was holding her, rocking her. He felt her limp, unresponsive body. Cries broke loose from the depths of his soul. It radiated throughout his body, and then all he saw was blackness. Blackness. Staggering to his bedroom, he sat down on the bed. Holding his head, closing his eyes, he tried to comprehend what was happening. He had seen her face before. It was always the same face. But he had never before felt the pain. He saw himself hold her body close to him. An overwhelming sense of loss welled up, leaving a gaping wound, an aching emptiness. This was no delusion.